Good morning. Welcome to Morning Java. I'm Matt Grubba alongside Matt Sunday, here to brighten your morning with sports. Same way Get-Go Cafe and Market will brighten your day with their 2 for $6 croissant sandwiches.
Dude, I'm just going to throw this out there, though. Don't eat 2 by yourself because these croissants are like, they're massive. I ate 2 by myself, and I was like, man, I should have given one to my brother. Should have given one to Matt Grubba.
They're that big?
They're big.
See, I haven't tried them. Usually I'm the one who always pumps up the combo, too, the $3.99, just the hash browns, the coffee, and one sandwich. So it's
See, that's like a safer single bet. I mean, like, I'm a big guy. That's a lot of food, man. That's a lot of food, but it's good, though. I like it. I always get the chicken.
All right. Well, we got plenty of time to tailgate and get ready because Saturday, you and I are both going to be at Heinz Field for Penn State coming to town, taking on Pitt. It's going to be, a huge environment. It will be probably the last time that game happens in the city of Pittsburgh for at least a decade. And so, just what are your expectations for what the crowd's going to be like?
Man, it's just going to be a crazy weekend. It all starts here. 15 hours later, I'm in Cleveland for the Steelers, of course, kicking off their season. But, I missed Pitt's first game of the season, which is rare. Got engaged. I don't have a ring, but my girlfriend / whatever she is now to me now, my future, she has a ring. But I missed their first one. I'm really excited to shoot this because I missed last year's. And the game 2 years ago in Pittsburgh was just, it was everything that you want Pitt football to be in Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh's such a football town, and you just need football to be here, regardless of whether it's pro or college.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second, what that's going to be like.
So, Matt, I kind of railroaded us there talking about my romantic life.
Hey, that's terrific, man. That's good news to share with all the readers out there. But
people in Pittsburgh care more about football. Let's put it that way. I was really happy 2 years ago to see just how much the game meant to people outside of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Because we talk about should Pitt downsize their stadium? Should they find a way to fill the stands without expecting 57,000+ people to be there? All those things aside, when Penn State comes to town, it's a big event. It's fun.
And you know what? And to be fair, when West Virginia, when that rivalry was still going on, the backyard brawl, that was always a big seller. Notre Dame comes to town always. It's a game that gets the whole city into it. Everybody, people right up and down the street from you. You'll have Pitt and Penn State flags out, neighbors going against neighbors, that sort of thing. But, talking about Pitt football getting to that point, it all comes down to winning with Pitt. And I can remember a number of years back, I can't even remember exactly what year it was, but Pitt was playing for a Big East title in the last day of the season against Cincinnati, and Heinz Field was packed, even though it was probably about 10 degrees and snowing that day. Of course, Pitt fans remember with agony the Marty Gilliard heroics for Cincinnati in that game. But when Pitt wins, the fans will show up for that. They show up, the primetime games against Virginia Tech and Miami and the old Big East when that used to be, where the title was on the line. So really, it sounds like oversimplifying, but it doesn't matter if they were in Pitt Stadium, if they're at Heinz Field, whatever. When they're winning, the fans show up, and when they aren't, the 90s, Pitt Stadium was pretty empty a lot of times, too.
I've seen, even, like you mentioned West Virginia, I spent a lot of time, obviously, in West Virginia. Fans aren't always the best there either. They're better because they don't compete with a professional team in the same city, and they don't have, say, all of the Penn State fans that live in Morgantown that do in Pittsburgh. But, all teams fight with that. But I always go back to when James Conner returned and just seeing a half-full stadium. And that was a pretty good season for Pitt football, and the people still weren't there. So, Matt, since we're talking college football and you brought up West Virginia,
of course,
got to bring up, they play Youngstown State this weekend.
Beware, Pitt fans can warn you. That's trouble.
Now, we saw West Virginia last week open up against Tennessee, big neutral site game. They played in Charlotte. These teams opt sometimes to start with the big game and then fall back into a lesser opponent. We saw Penn State almost lose to Appalachian State, who Appalachian State has created some havoc in their past too.
Right, yeah, and that's a program, Appalachian State, you mentioned, that now they're a bowl subdivision team. They've been really successful at the level they play at. But I think a lot of that just underlines how much the gap is shrinking between big-time college football and these smaller programs. That, Youngstown State is a team that 2 years ago, but the year before they took Pitt to overtime, they were in the national championship game at the FCS level. And I mean, other than 20-some scholarships, there's not a ton of difference. You look in the NFL now, how many guys do you see that went to James Madison, Delaware, Youngstown State, that level of team, and especially now that you have more and more schools going to the FBS level like Appalachian State, it's the gap is no longer. I mean, it's still there. I mean, certainly none of those teams is going to walk into Alabama probably and come away with a win anytime soon. But it just, the risk is there no matter who you're playing, I think.
There's a risk, but it's also important for the smaller schools too, because you mentioned the scholarship difference. Well, there's a financial earnings difference too. I mean, a lot of these teams are getting paid serious sums of money to travel and play in front of big crowds for these large schools. I mean, if you're a team that goes and plays in Ohio State and you're getting a big paycheck to go to their house and play, I mean, that's a big deal for the program, let alone the chance to upset them. I mean, it brings in money. It gives those programs chances to succeed. It gives guys chances to shine in situations they wouldn't necessarily.
Yeah, and you're not even talking, when you're talking about programs, not just their football programs, but entire athletic departments. That's why a lot of these SEC teams, the second to last week of the seasons, when they'll play a lot of cupcakes, and it's their senior day for that sort of thing. But for those smaller teams, it's actually to benefit football in general in that region that they're playing the Sun Belt teams and the FCS teams from that area.
And it's slightly different too when we're talking about TCU when they were originally going to join the Big East, and you're looking at a team who had a light schedule, and that's why they weren't being considered nationally for the big bowls, or like a BYU or a Boise or any of these teams that have played lesser competition. It's not really the same situation anymore because these teams all play a lot of parity, as you mentioned, similar to NCAA basketball now, and the lesser teams have a chance to shine.
All right, well, still talking college football, and I'm a Pitt guy, you're a West Virginia guy, so we have our differences there. But one thing I think we can agree on, it makes college sports in general, I think, are the stadium traditions and the songs and things like that. And certainly West Virginia, everybody, I think you have to take your hat off and salute when you hear John Denver come on, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to leave mine on right now because I don't know what my hair looks like. Actually, I'll take it off.
Oh, there we go.
All right, sorry. But how about hearing 72,000 people singing Country Roads in Charlotte? If you didn't watch the game, you've probably seen the clips shared by everybody. I mean, these are big moments. It's not just the in-stadium stuff. It's the people tailgating in RVs in Morgantown, or the giant lots that are filled even at the NFL level, say in like Kansas City. All football teams have their traditions. I don't know if either one of us likes Sweet Caroline, all differences aside.
I've already said, they do that at the Pitt games, Sweet Caroline. At least they moved it to where they sort of did like with Renegade at the Steelers games, where it's not always at the same point now. Against Albany, they played it in the second quarter, I think, because they realized the way that game was going, it might be over by halftime. But it's to me, ones like that are a little more forced when they are more of a pop song. I mean, not that Country Roads wasn't a pop hit back in the day, but it was. It fits West Virginia because it talks about the state in the song. It's Sweet Caroline. To me, it never really fit, and I mean, it only sort of appeared at Pitt as like a Wanstead era tradition. It's not like they've been doing it since way back when. So I'm not sold on that. I mean, you mentioned Tennessee that West Virginia played against, Rocky Top. Great song that you associate with the school. I mean, to me, those are the best ones when you have something that really just is identified with the place. I mean, Sweet Caroline, you could be at Fenway Park at a Red Sox game.
Well, and that's probably where you should be when you listen to it. Penn State nails the Sweet Caroline thing, but I don't know that it belongs there either. Fit. So, I mean, it's always going to be an interesting topic, just the stadium songs last year when Pitt played it in the first half and then also for the second half because fans were leaving. I don't know. Should you do that?
No. You want to know, if you want a Pitt musical tradition, I have one thing to say. Bring back the bridge, and Pitt fans will know what I'm talking about when they hear the victory song.
I think they should just play some Donnie Iris.